Malo Lele, and welcome everyone to another live digital conversation here on the Polynesian Eyes podcast. You have here Tua Fale coming from Southern Nevada in the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas. So, really excited to be here and join all of our viewers and listeners on this live digital conversation. Mr. Aotearoa is once again on the road. He is probably the most traveled member of the live digital conversation. So he was actually here a couple days ago. We were able to hang out here in Las Vegas. He is en route to New York City. So the Polynesian Eyes podcast team will have one of the team will be in the Big Apple and experiencing that opportunity there. So he is currently in Utah. I think tomorrow he's going to fly out to New York City, and we'll ask him to take some videos of Times Square. So that's where Mr. Aotearoa is now. Before jumping into the programs and some of the items that we're going to discuss today, want to give a couple quick announcements and updates to everyone here. Really appreciate those who signed up to be members of the channel. I know some of you may have gotten some notifications that your membership on the channel was on pause. We took care of that. It was paperwork we needed to take care of with YouTube. And so we really appreciate everyone's patience there and really appreciate your support by subscribing to the channel. So that's one really great way if you're looking to contribute and show some support to the podcast and to the channel. Please become a member. We'll shortly be developing some member only content here in the near future. Also, feel free to contribute through the super chats. And if there is a comment that you really want to share or just want to support, use the super chat there and contribute with a digital kava bag. We call those digital kava bags in the super chats. Have a couple pretty interesting announcements that wanted to make here today. And the first one is we've had a tremendous amount of growth in the social media platforms across all of them. But the big surprise for us the past 28 days has been on Facebook. One of our Facebook pages had a tremendous amount of interactions and traffic. And for the month of August, had just under 400,000 views. And really, it's just great appreciation here from the Polynesian Eyes podcast to all the viewers and the listeners and the supporters there. We just got invited to monetize the podcast on Facebook. So we're going to take care of that and start reaping that benefit and support from the viewers and the listeners around the world. Another interesting comment or situation. Sorry. Get this alarm here taken care of. But the other interesting announcement we did want to make was let me just update this real quick. We're going to change our lights here. We're going to set this up real quick so we can do a transition. But there we go. We were just doing a live on the TikTok. We kind of instituted that a few weeks ago where before we start the live here, we go live on TikTok. It's a great way to interact with the viewers and listeners and the followers there, since we don't do a lot of live interactions with the followers on TikTok. So we do that before every show. So Molenisime, Malo, appreciate it. Thank you for the comment and for stopping by. The last announcement slash important news that we're going to share about the podcast is we are officially a syndicated podcast, which means uh, we have been reached out to from the Kingdom of Tonga, from the Tonga Broadcasting Commission, and they are interested in having the Polynesianized podcast be broadcast on the radio in Tonga. The board of the uh, Tonga Broadcasting Commission just voted and accepted the agreement that we proposed. And so the Polynesianized podcast is officially a syndicated podcast. So we really are excited for that. That can lead to some interesting opportunities. So as soon as next week, we are working through the details. Starting next week on FM 90 of the Tonga Broadcasting Commission, they will be broadcasting some of our episodes live over the radio waves in Tonga. This is kind of cool. We didn't anticipate that we would have kind of this opportunity come our way, but really appreciate all the support from the viewers around the world. And even a thank you to all of our not so supportive listeners and followers, right? Because at the end of the day, even the negative comments are comments to our videos and so forth that pushes the algorithm, has more engagement, and actually gets us more exposure. So, for those who are supportive and those who are not, we are still appreciative of that. So, we're excited to have that and look forward to having our content broadcast live in the Kingdom of Tonga. A couple more comments here. Moleni Siemens says, Aloha from Maui and the Maui Esiafi Social Club. Mahalo, Abito. Moleni. So appreciate that. Hey, Tevita, malo. Appreciate the support. He says, nice. Hey, Wata, malo, masi. Maalahi Abito, malo. Appreciate it. And Mauhau says, congrats to Koua. Malo. Really appreciate it. So with that being said, we're gonna look at. There's a couple things I wanted to start off with the program here today, and the first one I wanted to take a look at, and we're gonna, the Matema Tonga is getting ready for the Pacific Nations Cup. That's pretty exciting, and this is gonna be pretty cool. We're looking forward to these games, and really, I'm excited for this right now with the Kangaroos touring England. That means that in the Pacific Nations Cup, it's just going to be Tonga, Samoa, and New Zealand who will be playing for the Pacific Nations Cup in 2025. So, really interesting. The first game is on October 19th, and that would be New Zealand and Samoa at Go Media Stadium. So, hey, want to recognize some of our subscribers. And so Mel is actually our first subscriber to the channel. So really appreciate that. She has that symbol right next to her name. And so we always take the time. That's one of the cool things about being a subscriber. You pop up in the comments. I think it's for a couple bucks a month, you can contribute and support the show. So really appreciate that, Mel. And also Mel has shared some of her research. I think I'm going to get through it over the weekend, Mel. And depending on what we're able to find there, we may have a show to walk through some of Mel's research, and look forward to that. Another comment here from Nina Talau, listening from Lebanon. That is pretty cool, Nina or Nina. Not sure how he goes. I have a sister that goes with that name, but she goes by Nina. I know some people go by Nina. So really appreciate that, Nina, and glad to hear that we have a listener and a follower all the way from Lebanon. coming back to the discussion here, October 19th, the Kiwis versus Samoa. Then obviously the big one, right, is October 26th, Samoa versus Tonga. And this says a lot. Suncorp Stadium, right? And then on November 2nd, it is going to be the Kiwis versus Tonga. And once again, look at the venue, Eden Park. So I think this says a lot, right? On both of Tonga's games, it's going to be at Eden Park and at Suncorp. Those are basically the pinnacle of stadiums in Australia and New Zealand. And that's, I believe, a big driver behind that is they're expecting the Red Sea to arrive, right? Sold out stadiums, tremendous support, and an atmosphere that, according to almost every major rugby league athlete that has played on the highest stage of Origin and World Cup, but have also played against Tonga with the Red Sea there, they have said that is by far the number one experience that they had in just the crowd, the atmosphere, the energy, the engagement, and obviously the competition with Matema'a Tonga playing such a huge role there. So really excited for this. Everyone should be putting this on their calendars and tuning in wherever they can. And so look forward to the Red Sea. Honestly, if I could make it, I would. But unfortunately, we all got to pay bills and make money to buy the groceries. So hopefully one day I'll be in a position to be able to attend this. But this is definitely on my radar, which is funny because, I grew up in Tonga watching rugby league, obviously in Mu'a, the big rugby league village. And I remember watching the NRL from a little kid, watching Steve Renoff, Mal Meninga. Was a big Broncos fan, right? Wendell Saylor and all those guys watching the Rugby League World Cup. It was not a very popular thing to do back then, growing up in the mid to late 90s, even the early 2000s. And while living in Virginia is when, Jason Taumalolo and those guys joined Tonga, and all of a sudden there was just tremendous interest in rugby league. But prior to that, everybody was primarily interested in the Ikaretahi, and really, it's awesome. I was one of those few guys that was still watching rugby league. Big part of it is because I did play with the Moa Saints and really took a liking to rugby league, and also growing up and watching the Broncos play was pretty awesome. So really excited for that. The next thing I wanted to walk through, let me see here, is our brother Sapolu. And, this is kind of related to this whole Matema'a Tonga. This is his commentary. I think, we appreciate our brother here's content online. I know he's not necessarily a fan of the Polynesianized podcast. I think the only time we've made their podcast, their comment was kind of in opposition to some of the things we discussed, which is fine. We don't expect everybody to love us and hug us. And as we mentioned on TikTok live this evening before we jumped on the live here, we know not everyone's going to agree. And honestly, if someone agreed with everything that I thought, I would be suspicious. Even Mr. Aotearoa doesn't agree with all my positions, and I don't always agree with all of Mr. Aotearoa's, but we're here to have a discussion. It's a live digital kava session, right? Everybody's got to have an open mind, and everybody's got to understand your ideas are not going to be undefeated, right? We have the arena. The gladiator arena of ideas is here on the Polynesianized podcast. We are open to all ideas, all perspectives. Throw it in there into the arena to compete, but please don't have a allergic reaction when your idea gets choked out or knocked out in the first round, or even just concedes before getting into the arena, like some of our opponents online. I wouldn't say opponents, they're just people who don't agree with us. But it's just hilarious to me because they all have this allergic reaction to some of our people, but some of our perspectives and ideas. So he's going to talk about, obviously the big news lately is Payne Haas, um, and a couple other Samoan players were looking to make the switch, and Payne Haas is kind of at the height. He's discussed as one of the main top props and forwards in the game. So it's kind of interesting to kind of just listen now that we talked about the Matematonga, Toa Samoa, and the Kiwis getting ready to go to the Pacific Cup, and just kind of talk about the buzz around rugby league and its international game, and just kind of give some reactions to that. So that's what we're going to do. Once again, if you want to support the show or want to have a comment that be highlighted and brought up, please use the super chats, and we'll also make pick some comments as we go through.
The Jason Taumalolo of now, like when
Yeah.
Jason Taumalolo did it, he was the best player in the world. He was the highest paid player in the world, and he chose Tonga. So this is sort of like the Samoan moment where the best player in the world, or arguably the best player in the world,
Arguably, I
has
will.
chosen,
Yeah, that's fair. That's a little
to
more.
serve Samoa. And it's massive, bro. It's like he's gone beyond the ice wall. He's broken through the firmament. Of all the mainstream shit. Play for Australia, serve the whiteness.
Yeah.
It's really cool, man. It takes in.
I don't. To use Mr. Aotearoa's thing is like serve the whiteness. I don't know why that has to be brought up. I think he brought up a fair argument leading up to it. Is like maybe some. He obviously has issues with our Western brothers and sisters. So
Extraordinary person to to go beyond the money. The money is what we're always taught and conditioned to go for, and he can obviously easily make a paycheck, but it's good. There's something more that he wants in life.
Yeah.
And of course, to people who have only
that's what
represented
Polynesians
Australia or
bring
have
to the
only done
table,
things
man.
for the money, this will seem unfathomable. Like it's beyond their comprehension. How could he do this? Because they've never done anything unless it's mainstream or unless it's wide or unless it's for the money. So it's good. And of course we've seen all the others do it.
Yeah.
Now it's like his turn, but that's cool, bro.
Using the right.
I mean, we're gonna pull this off. Hopefully, with more contributions from everybody, we can hopefully one day graduate from the free YouTube to the paid YouTube, so we don't have to deal with the advertising here. But he brings up a good point, and it's fair, and then I agree that this is an important thing that Polynesians bring to the table, and it can be unfathomable. But once again, this just goes to show what David Fifita and especially Jason Taumalolo did. They were the first ones to break through that glass ceiling, right? And once somebody breaks through, it then empowers others to follow. And that doesn't mean it's easy. It's still going to be hard. Like Sapolu here is saying, still Payne Haas is going to still miss out on money and still run the risk of injury, because that's the other thing too, is not only do you lose that money, but you're also could be putting your contract at risk, your career at risk if you get injured while not getting paid. So that can be a challenging thing. Yeah, that's kind of silly to say that he forced him. He's a grown man. He can make his own choices. Oh, it's mute. My bad. My bad.
Appreciate that his parents kept him alive, kept him happy, and
Malo
that,
Devita.
and not for any money back. You know what I mean? So parents who sacrifice everything for their kids, they sacrifice their time, their income, to out of love, because there's no monetary benefit that you're gonna get for caring for a 6-month-old. You know what I mean? So I think it's that, like, that's the what's been embedded. And people can blame Luai and blame Crichton or whatever, but there's this whole childhood that this guy was raising. There's this whole life that he would have seen and experienced, the love of his parents, the love of his family. And it's ridiculous to reduce this full-grown man to this year.
Yeah, just for those, because I did have it on mute there. He's talking about Mel Maminga, which he's a legend, immortal, as they say in the rugby league world. He's trying to propose the idea that Payne Haas was coerced by Luai and other players on the Toa Samoa. And we're like, dude, he's a grown man. He's not going to be coerced by anybody. He's making this choice of his own. So I as much as I respect and appreciate Mal Maminga, but I'm 100% here with Sao Paulo here. This is kind of foolish, and I think maybe the Aussies just don't know how to react right now, right? Like they're now bleeding top tier talent, and it doesn't make sense to them, and they don't know how to deal with it. But Pacific Island teams have been dealing with that challenge for decades and decades. So nothing new there.
Like his whole life. And to suggest that he's so dumb that he's going to be controlled by Luai and controlled by Crichton is pathetic. This is a full-on man with history and experiences and family, and to just reduce it to, oh, it must have been Luai and it must have been Crichton's influence is bullshit. Yeah. This dude has a soul, and he would have seen the sacrifices that his parents made and appreciated that they never looked at him as a piece of finance. How can I get some return on it? He would have experienced that people sacrificed for him out of love. And then this decision would have been like that. I don't need to look at this as a financial decision. I don't need to rip which country. In order for me to look for greatness, I don't need to look at where the money is. My parents saw greatness in me simply out of love, not out of how can we make money. So he would have learned how to make decisions based on just love. And remember, money is something that was brought to the Pacific. Like, we have always had this fire in us inherently. We don't need money to find purpose in life. Money was brought to the Pacific. Like, we created our inventions, our languages, surfing, swimming, sailing, all of that was when there was no money. We have always had this soul burning within us before money. And money has been brought to dim it, to dim our purpose in life.
It can dim
to
it,
get
but
us to be part of the matrix and part of this whole colonial system or whatever. So it's really nice to see some people step away from that shit and make a decision that's not based on money and what they brought, but make a decision based on love. It's really cool. And maybe he'll change his decision later, but it's really good to see someone step out of all of that mainstream pressure and adulation and conformity, all of these values that were imposed on us, and then they succeed by internalizing it. So we keep.
yeah, I just don't understand why he always reflexively falls back to this white guy's the bad guy. Understood the West did what they did, but the concept of currency, whether it's social, physical, or monetary, that that is not a totally Western concept, right? The idea of actually physical coins, yes, but money is a representation of product or service, and it allows trade to happen at a higher rate. That's really what's driven progress in the human race. Um, and so, yeah, I see GT here saying money is just a tool. Yes, and really, you know, I appreciate our history, and there were a lot of great things. Um, but let's also not over fantasize our past versus the economic opportunity that the Western system has provided, right? And I think this is where we have to adopt what our ancestors did on navigating this new world that they saw coming, and you have to figure out, how do I navigate this new economy, this new government, this new social structure, and how to navigate it and to hold on to what we think is most important while leveraging the opportunities that the Western world was bringing to the table. That's literally what Payne Haas, Jason Taumalolo, and Andrew Fifita are doing. They are leveraging the opportunity that the NRL is providing them, right, to build up their personal and their familial goals, while at the same time contributing and giving back to their ancestral origins, right? And playing for Tonga and playing for Samoa. I don't think I don't want to get into this idea of colonization and the white guy and the whiteness. It is what it is. I mean, if Samoa was the most powerful nation in the world, Samoa would be colonizing, right? Tonga at a time was the most influential in Polynesia, and they did what they did. And so, you know, I don't know why, but I think he has a lot of challenges with the Western world, but he's leveraged it, right? I mean, I believe he's a lawyer. And he played overseas professionally, and he's contributed back to Samoa, but he does have kind of like a reflexive kind of frustration with the Western world. That is for sure. That is for
Following
sure.
what they want us to follow. It's awesome to see someone go, nah, I don't want to serve Balangi Australia. I want to serve these dark-skinned brown people over here. You know? It's really cool. It's
It
always
is
cool every
cool.
time we see that. And I just really think it's bullshit to suggest Mal Meninga to say, oh, it was because of Luai and Crichton.
That is kind of that is baloney. And I agree with him on that, right? Like, it is baloney to try and just say, "Oh, he was forced," and I'm like, "Guy, he's a grown man." I think the Aussies just don't know how to react to that reality, that that they can't just use money and influence to force the Polynesian players to play for Australia and New Zealand. And we're gonna get into another video after this on Laumape. And you know what? I think I'm good with our brother here, Sapolo here. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get to is, it's cool. It's cool to see our Polynesian brothers here, you know, provide an opportunity for them to serve for our countries, our countries of heritage on Tonga and Samoa. But also, we also gotta give, you know, dues where they're due, and that is, the NRL has been so successful and provided such a great platform that these guys can do that, right? They've made enough money in their career where it's no longer purely a financial decision. It's the fact that these guys do have these strong contracts at the NRL that they can do this. The reason why this never really happened before is there there wasn't enough financial stability for a lot of these guys to take care of their families and play for Tonga or Samoa or Fiji. The success of the NRL is now allowing that, right? And also the rugby league rules are facilitating that. But it's it's because the rules have been updated and changed that it is the way that it is. So I grew up an All Blacks fan. I grew up supporting All Blacks primarily because of Jonah Lomu, but I quickly became disenchanted with the All Blacks because it became apparent to me growing up in Tonga watching that they would, and I can't blame them, right? Because you want to win and you do these things because you want to win and you want to give yourself the best opportunities to win. And it is what it is. I guess gotta give them that. But at the same time, they were kind of not serving the interests of the game like they always say they are many times. They say the rules are the way they are, which are many times promoted by New Zealand and influenced by New Zealand many times. The rules are the way they are to protect the integrity of the game. But really, if they were looking at providing the best product for the viewer, they wouldn't have made the rules that prevented the best athletes from playing. And I saw a lot of Polynesian athletes, with the rule, once you play for one nation, you can't play for another one. Or once you play for one nation, you have to wait 4 years before you can trade. But I saw the All Blacks, a couple years before a World Cup, bring up a Polynesian player that they may not have been interested to start for the All Blacks, but they would bring them up for some tour and then have them play and then drop them and never use them, made them ineligible to go to another country and force them to sit on the bench or not even leave the New Zealand, right? Not even make it to the World Cup. Lau Mape is one of those guys, just one of the most recent guys that, I thought he was going to do well in the All Blacks, make a huge impact. But unfortunately, New Zealand did its thing, man, and wanted to watch this and just kind of react to his story. And I think it's indicative of what was done to so many Polynesian players in the past by New Zealand.
He was once hailed as one of the most explosive midfielders in rugby, a powerful runner, a defensive rock, and a game changer whenever he had the ball. But what happened when Ngani Laumape went from a rising NRL talent to an All Black, only to be dropped and left chasing opportunities overseas?
Yeah, see?
His journey is one of skill, controversy, and financial decisions that changed the trajectory of his career. Ngani Laumape's story didn't start on a rugby field. Like many Pacific Island athletes, growing up in New Zealand, his raw talent was first noticed in rugby league. The fast-paced, physicality, and aggressive running style of league suited him perfectly. It wasn't long before the NRL came calling. The Warriors picked him up as a promising young player, and he made his debut in 2013.
One of the reasons why the NRL and rugby league is so successful at identifying talent is they are much more conscious of the product that they're trying to promote, right? The NRL, though not quite at the American level of understanding how to develop a brand and to really engage fans, but the NRL does a way better job than Super Rugby, and Rugby League does a way better job than Rugby Union, right? Rugby League is really geared towards improving the product. And they understand that the best way to improve the product is talent on the field. You got to get talent on the field. Secondary to that is you provide an environment where the talent can be magnified with the rules. And that's why rugby league is light years ahead. And just like here, like Laumape's story here is he gets picked up by the NRL because of that talent. And unfortunately, his mistake may have been becoming an All Black, which is kind of sad that this quality entertainer on the sports side was a casualty of chasing the black jersey.
Over the next couple of seasons, Laumape showed promise, but injuries and competitions for spots made it tough for him to cement a starting position. Financially, NRL contracts for young players can be tricky. While top-tier stars can earn well into the millions per season, young players breaking into first grade typically sign lower-tier deals.
Introducing our cutting-edge.
Yeah. And that's, once again, that's the challenge that every player, when you start, it's no different than the NFL. When you're coming into the NFL as a rookie, especially if you're not drafted, right? If you're not drafted, you gotta rough it as a free agent, and you don't even know if you're going to make the cut. And when you do make the cut, you're on a rookie deal, and it's not the millions that the pros or the first draft pick gets. So it can be challenging. That's fair.
Laumape's contract with the Warriors was estimated to be around $100,000 per year New Zealand dollars.
Wow, 100K,
Decent,
that's not
but
bad.
nowhere near the life-changing money. By 2015, with limited opportunities and an uncertain future in league, he made a bold decision to switch codes and try his luck in rugby union. Switching from league to union isn't easy. The skill sets are different, the tactics are more complex, and the positional awareness required in rugby can take years to master. But Laumape's power suited the midfield perfectly. The Hurricane.
I will say, though, rugby league players going into union do a lot better than purely rugby union players who go to rugby league. So it is, and I agree here that they're very different sports, but there seems to be a lot more success from a rugby league player coming into union than a union player going into league.
took a chance on him, and he repaid them almost instantly. His ball-carrying ability was explosive, and he quickly became one of the most destructive second 5/8s in Super Rugby. By 2017, Laumape's performances were impossible to ignore. His ability to break tackles, offload and contact,
Power and
finish
speed.
tries made him a standout. He was rewarded with an All Blacks call-up. It was a huge moment, going from an NRL cast-off to an All Blacks in just a couple of years. His international debut came against the British and Irish Lions, one of the most intense tests a player can experience. And while he performed well, breaking the line and showing his trademark power, his place in the squad was never fully secure. Following his debut, Laumape continued to make an impression in the black jersey.
I wonder what years these were. Maybe it was a couple years before a World Cup. Tell you, man.
Between 2017 and 2021, he played 15 tests for the All Blacks and scoring 8 tries. His ability to power through defensive lines and his explosive speed off the mark made him a genuine threat wherever he had the ball. He was often used as an impact player, coming off the bench to inject physicality into the midfield. However, he also had several standout performances as a starter. One of his most memorable performances came in 2018 against France in Wellington. Laumape scored 2 tries, demonstrating his brute strength and acceleration.
Wow, great try.
In that match, he carried the ball 15 times for over 100 meters, broke multiple tackles, and showed why he was such a unique weapon in the All Blacks arsenal. Statistically, Laumape's impact was clear. He averaged over 40 meters per game in the Test rugby, with a high percentage of dominant carries. His tackle break rate was among the best in the squad, often ranking alongside the likes of Rieko Ioane and Damien McKenzie. His strike rate of a try every 1.87 games was also impressive for a midfielder,
Wow.
proving that
I
he
mean,
was
the guy
more
was
than just
off
a
the
battering
charts on the
ram.
stats.
He could finish as well. Despite his on-field impact, Laumape never seemed to be guaranteed a starter for the All Blacks. New Zealanders' midfield stocks were deep, with players like Sonny Bill Williams, Jack Goodhue, and Anton Leonard-Brown often preferred. Laumape's direct physical approach was different from the traditional playmaking.
I mean, Sonny B. Williams, I can kind of see that. But the other two guys, never really heard of them. They didn't stick around long enough, but or at least not enough for me to notice them. But but yeah, apart from Sonny Bill Williams, don't know too much about the other two guys.
Style midfielders the selectors favoured. He was often seen as a backup option rather than a first choice player.
Yeah.
Salaries in New Zealand rugby are structured differently from overseas leagues. While the top players can earn over $1 million per year with a combination of Super Rugby and national team contracts, fringe players don't see the same money. Laumape's estimated salary with the Hurricanes and All Blacks was around $400,000 to $500,000 per year.
All right, did pretty
Solid,
good.
but still not at the top end. Given the demands of professional rugby, constant travel, and physical toll, it's understandable why some players begin looking at overseas options early in their careers. Then came the shock decision. Laumape was left out of the All Black squad in 2021. Despite being
2020. Is that World Cup year? 2021. Like I said, like this is leading up. That doesn't make any sense. This is besides, you just don't want him to play anywhere else. So you make sure he plays for the All Blacks and then you sit him, right?
in his prime and one of the most dominant midfielders in Super Rugby, he was overlooked. Was it his playing style? Did he not fit the game plan? The real reason was never fully explained, but the decision frustrated fans who believed he had more to offer. Many felt that Laumape had been underappreciated and that his skill set was unique enough to bring a different dimension to the team. Without a future in the All Blacks and with contract negotiations stalling, Laumape made a career-defining move.
And what's interesting is, and I think we did this, Artie Savea almost went through the same thing as well, right? Artie Savea was almost lost because he was never consistently considered a starter, but was held around and lingered around long enough that became undeniable. And now he's, one of the best players in the world. But, Ngani Laumape is going through the same thing. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like he was able to overcome that.
New Zealand rugby to play in Europe. And this is where the money really changed. French clubs in the top 14 are known for offering huge salaries, often outbidding New Zealand rugby for top talent. When Laumape signed with Stade de France, his reported salary jumped up to well over $1 million per season.
Good for him.
In one move, he had doubled.
And this for me, this is what more players need to do from New Zealand. And I think this is one of the reasons why it is happening. And, you have guys like Jonah Lomu, same thing. Jonah Lomu didn't take the NFL contract because, he loved the black jersey and everything. And then that's great. If that's what you want, that's cool. But also, you got to look at what's best for you. And if Super Rugby and New Zealand Rugby want you, they'll change their rules and they'll change what they pay you. But, I'm glad he took the money and went overseas. You gotta take that go where you're wanted. Let's put it that way. Go where you're wanted. And really take that opportunity to make a difference in you and your family's life.
If not tripled his earnings. This highlights a key issue in New Zealand rugby. While the All Blacks brand is one of the most respected in world sport, their financial muscle simply cannot compete with the deep pockets of European clubs.
Yep.
Players who choose to stay in New Zealand.
And this is the exact thing that New Zealand was doing to the Pacific Islands as well, right? Tonga, Samoa, and Fiji couldn't compete with the financial opportunities that the All Blacks brought. But now New Zealand is suffering from the same thing that they were benefiting from for decades and decades. And that is now there's a bigger fish with the bigger checkbook. And now the younger Polynesian players are going overseas. You have Charles Butau and Sopoanga, I think, left while still in his prime. Same thing with him. Wasn't really being selected consistently at 10. So he went overseas. And I think more young Polynesian athletes should really consider this. And you should really consider, the roadmap of going overseas. Develop your skill sets in New Zealand in high school, but, figure out ways to make contacts and open up relationships with clubs in Europe. And, don't just have Super Rugby on your radar. If that's where the more immediate opportunity comes, take it. But if I was a young athlete, I would always be looking to develop a relationship in Europe or in Asia where the contract values are higher, and go sooner. Go sooner. You can make all black money or more than all black money in Europe or Asia. And like I said, if the All Blacks really want to have this talent available, change their rules. And if World Rugby wants to have the best product on the field, they will change their rules, just like the Rugby League Federation and then also the NRL are changing their rules to try and maximize the product by having the best talent on the field.
Do so largely out of national pride or desire to play international rugby. But for those who prioritize financial security, the decision to move abroad is becoming increasingly common. New Zealand players often
That's
leave
awesome.
for European clubs towards the end of their careers to cash in before retirement. But Laumape was still in his prime, choosing financial security over
Good for
chasing
him.
a spot in the All Blacks. The reality is that New Zealand rugby struggles to compete with the financial power of French and Japanese clubs. Even top-tier All Blacks like Beauden Barrett and Brodie Retallick have taken overseas sabbaticals for higher pay. Laumape simply made the move earlier than most. His time in France hasn't been without challenges. European rugby is different, more structured, slower pace, and heavily focused on forward play.
How long before I see results?
That's funny. And I'm glad he did it. I think he made the right choice. I think going to Europe was the right thing. And I think more young Polynesian players should look at that. Go to the NRL or start developing relationships overseas to progress there. So good for him.
Of running is still a weapon. Adapting to a new system, culture, and language was never going to be easy. But he's still having an impact, proving why he was once considered one of the All Blacks' most powerful midfielders. Stade de France had relied on him to bring the physical edge to their backline, and he had delivered with solid performances. The debate over Laumape's exclusion from the All Blacks continues. Many believe he was never given a fair chance, while others argue his playing style didn't fit New Zealand's approach. Regardless, his career choices have set him up financially.
I mean, they said the same thing about Jonah Lomu as well, right? I don't think New Zealand totally maximized Jonah Lomu on the commercial and on the game, right? But New Zealand's got to figure this out, in my opinion, especially in the Super Rugby. They really got to figure out how to improve their product. I know a lot of people are like, rugby union needs to come to America. Guys, how about sell out the stadiums in New Zealand and Australia first in rugby union? Figure out how to make that work before you come and try and compete in the American market that has the NFL, that has the NBA, that has NHL, Major League Soccer, and all these other professional sports that they have to compete with. Figure that out first before trying to come to the US.
Way that staying in New Zealand could never have. The question now is, will we ever see him back in an All Blacks jersey?
No.
Or has he closed the chapter for good? The New Zealand Rugby Union.
How long ago was this done?
Unless they're absolutely
this was probably done a few years ago, because there ain't no way he's coming back.
Laumape's chances of a return seem slim. But if injuries or a lack of midfield depth forces selectors to reconsider, would he even want to come back?
No.
The pay cut to return to Super Rugby would be significant. And at this stage of his career, financial security might be his priority. From the NRL to Super Rugby, from the All Blacks to the European club scene, Ngāni Laumapi's journey is a reminder of how unpredictable professional sports can be. Talent alone doesn't guarantee selection, and sometimes
this Artie
financial
Salve, it
decisions
looks
outweigh
like.
national pride. He may have not got the fairy tale All Blacks career that some expected, but one thing is clear. He's made choices that have set him up for life, and at the end of the day, that might be one of the smartest players of all. His story is also a reflection of the broader challenges New Zealand rugby faces. Can they continue to keep top talent in the country when the financial gap is so wide? Will more young players follow Laumapi's path and leave earlier in their careers? The sport is changing and players are more aware than ever of their worth. Laumapi's decision was controversial, but it was also a sign of the times. And as long as the European clubs are willing to pay top dollar, these kinds of moves will only become more common. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, 100%. Rugby union's in trouble, man. Obviously their international game is pretty stable and strong, but their domestic competitions outside of maybe Europe and in Asia and Japan, they're just bankrolled there. But they really got to figure something out. New Zealand's got to figure something out. Australia's got to figure something out. The All Blacks aren't as good as they are, and when I say not as good, I'm talking about their brand. And I mean, last I heard, the All Blacks lost their major sponsor, pulled out, so they're not as attractive as a commercial product as they think they are. Obviously, the All Blacks is a legacy brand that has a lot of history behind it, but they got to figure that out. And really, one of the biggest things they can do to figure that out is change the rules. Make it so that the best athletes have the most opportunity to participate, and not to gatekeep it. And that's something that they need to address at some point here, because I just don't see how it's feasible long term. That is what was the next thing here we were going to take a look at. Here's a this is kind of tied to some of our discussion. The next video we're going to react to is an interesting video, and it's in Tongan, so I'll do a translation into English. But this is a funny situation that's happening in Tonga, and it has to do with the legal case, and it's regarding the concept of culture and custom versus modern day laws, and how do we navigate that. And I think this is a prime example. We heard our brother from the Offside podcast talk about serving the whiteness and all the stuff, and it's a part of the reality we live in, and we got to figure out how to navigate it. It does have positives to it as well, but then having our culture and how we navigate and balance the two is an interesting situation that we all have to figure out at some point. But this I thought was kind of funny. This video right here. So let's bring it right here. It's pretty funny.
Ko eke ko ni I he whakamau angalahi, ko hanga I anko o whakailo hono ki inis, ko uhi ko ala hono ki inis o to'o ai wa mano, I think. Ko ni kane claim lewa, ko uhi ko ni anko lo anak whaiteri ki ai, culture, ko tau culture ia. Ai ko whai eke pia o ko hanga o ilo I he ngai eke, ko ni ka hanga mo o educators, ko eke fiha.
Koe koe eke fia he koe mea whamala hike na tō mena ripoti ai ngai ngai. Ka koe mea ni ko tala whatongia mai ke ai whakamawanga o whakotu mai ke tauhanga o.
So I think this is hilarious, just for those who don't understand Tongan. So there's an uncle who's taking his niece to court looks like in Tonga. Maybe it's it's got to be in Tonga, because the defense here is pretty weak.
We all the same fucking papa. Now, the people of the Pacific Maori included are all.
So the challenge that that's being brought up here is the uncle is taking the niece to court for stealing $20,000, right? And the niece's defense is, in my culture, because he's my uncle, so probably on his mom's side, probably her mom's brother, says, in the Tongan culture, I can do whatever I want with my uncles because it's culture, right? This is the improper understanding of what culture is, and also understanding the environment you live in. Yeah, there's, one can argue whether that is the intent of the culture que faiteria. I think that's just more of each individual family has their ways of interpreting and instituting that part of the culture of, your your dad's sisters, children can do what they want, however they want. That's up for interpretation many times and how it's executed. But there's also the law, and the law doesn't care what your relation is to the person. It's the concept of private property, and regardless of what you think the culture is, if you take somebody's private property without their consent, you go to jail or you pay a fine. So it's kind of hilarious listening to that story here, and I think that's important for how we look at what the matematonga situation's going on with, and navigating the Western world and the opportunities it provides and the necessities of the individual, the family, and the cultural background with these players, and making decisions, financial decisions that help us be successful and provide the financial stability that individuals and families are looking for, while maintaining our cultural ties and really trying to understand what our culture, what's most important to our culture, right? Like this niece here who's saying, because he's my uncle, I can do whatever I want with him. The law shouldn't apply to me because he's my uncle. And in our culture, I do whatever I want to the uncle, and that's just foolishness, right? That's just foolishness, and that's something that we definitely have to navigate. And whether you're a young athlete coming up in New Zealand or Australia, and yeah, you want to play for the All Blacks or the Wallabies, and have that that desire, but how do you weigh that options with going overseas where you can get more opportunity to provide for your family and yourself, and also keep yourself available and maybe possibly playing for your culture, yeah, your parents' culture, heritage, and making an impact there. And there's no right or wrong answer. You make the best choice you can with what you got in front of us. And like I said earlier, there's no solutions. There's only trade-offs. And that's something that, I think it's important that all of us, as we're navigating the modern world that we live in the Western world, and we don't got to take the victim mentality and say, oh, everything's bad because Europeans did this and that, and we over romanticize um, our history and our culture to the point that we can't navigate and leverage the opportunities in front of us to improve our personal, our family, and our people as a whole, by being wise with what we got. Let's see here. I think kind of going along with that in navigating these things, it is interesting. We did have a discussion on this when the elections in Samoa were going on. Just wanted to do a quick response to that as we look at how our brothers and sisters in Samoa are leveraging the cultural cohesiveness that they want to achieve as a nation, while also looking for economic opportunity. A lot of the concern in Samoa has been cost of living, right? Stability of the government, and really trying to see what the best choice is for the future for them. So we're gonna go ahead and finish off this segment before we go to the last segment of the program and just kind of watch the update that happened in Samoa with their elections. Which, by the way, the HRPP has vowed to take this result to the courts. They're alleging corruption. I don't know the details, but I find it interesting. When he lost to Fiame, it became a whole fiasco in the courts. Now that he's lost to the Fast Party again, he's looking to take it to court. So looks to be the norm here. Marie. That was one of the interesting thing in talking with Mr. Atero the last time. The Fast Party has a huge network and support outside of Ha'amoa, and they even had fundraisers outside of Ha'amoa, obviously, to help with the campaigns and so forth. So the diaspora overseas, it has a huge influence, and we see that quite a bit also in Tonga, though I'm not aware of specific fundraising, though it could happen, of the diaspora for parties. I think the challenge is with Tonga, there is no real official parties, but they're more not as officially organized as Ha'amoa, baby, but there's definitely coalitions behind certain ideas in Tonga. Same in Tonga. Yep. Oh, it's muted. My bad, dude. Malo Belinda. Oh, Belinda. What? High school classmate there. Belinda, nice to see you. Hey, tell Josh I said hi. Appreciate it. I'll go back a little bit and press play.
To harness the huge Samoan diaspora.
You vote for who you are connected to. But here, you also vote by who your family are connected with, even if you're overseas. Lauli Maliator, he was able to reach out through the various platforms of social media. He was able to gain support through that message of we really do have an out of reach government elite.
However, the formation of a new government may not be possible straight away, with former Prime Minister of 22
Oh, yeah,
years,
there we go.
and others vowing to challenge the outcome in the courts.
Homeboy is not going to give it up. Remember, he's also the same guy that when Fiame Ryan beat him on the last elections, he wasn't willing to open up parliament and let them in. They actually had to do parliament in tents. So this guy, he's pretty rugged around the edges.
Experts worry delays could hinder the provision of Samoa's government services, with departments running on diminished funds since Parliament blocked Prime Minister Fiamina Harimatafa's national budget in May. Cash flow for spending outside the bare minimum, including paying overtime for frontline medical staff, for example, isn't currently available.
None of the government ministries actually have the money to do their work, to provide the services that they need.
And while observers say the
Interesting.
election was fair and peaceful, some accusations of vote buying have surfaced.
We're starting to see social media posting that there is money politics involved here. This is yet to be confirmed. Of course, we are expecting a many number of cases that will come into court in the next 2 weeks.
There's also the slew of criminal charges,
Interesting.
including attempting to pervert the course of justice, that Laoli continues to fight in court. He already refused to step down from his ministry and
Seems this is what's funny. Even in Tonga, there's a lot of drama with politics. I guess this is the new norm. Like even the U.S., this is going on. With Donald Trump being impeached several times and investigated several times. So this is the new norm in politics in the world we live in.
Fime's previous government when the charges were originally laid earlier this year.
This is where we will definitely, as a public, observe what his next steps. Will he allow the Office of the Attorney General to continue to prosecute or take forth these cases? Depends up to him, but it's very likely that we will see this court case disappear or be deferred. And as part of the public, we expect that this is followed through.
Obviously, the public wasn't too concerned with it because they still voted for the guy. Unless Tuilaepa's right in, there's a lot of fraud and corruption going on that he has to take it to court.
And so this will be the test for Laoli, whether we see this case continue in the courts.
It's a far cry from the likely legacy of the country's first female prime minister, who made a virtue of abiding strictly to the rule of law.
TMA's party, they were well thought out, articulated politics, someone who brought politics that was reassuring, that was balanced, and also someone.
It's funny to hear the reporter here speak so positively and so forth of Fiame, but if we were to judge her on what the people voted, they obviously did not value or agree with what the reporter's saying, right? Like he's giving high remarks and flying colors for Fiame, but obviously the Samoan voter didn't think that was the case.
Who has a well-respected personality, not only across the Pacific region, but also globally.
It seems on this occasion that hasn't been nearly enough to convince her people to re-elect her.
Yeah, so kind of interesting to see that, and I guess a lot of people were surprised. They thought that maybe the HRPP would have given a better run for the money, but it's kind of interesting to see the Samoan people have spoken. We'll see how the court cases go. Tuilaepa just seems like a character to me, right? I watched a couple of the interviews and his bold idea of building the bridge from Savaii to Upolu, where he's just like, we have friends, and if we talk to our friends, anything is possible. So it's kind of interesting, but congratulations to Lauli and his party, and assuming he doesn't go to jail with the investigations, and that these results are kept after the many challenges it looks like from court. But this is the world we live in. This is the balancing act we all have to do as Polynesians, is navigate the modern world that's heavily influenced by Western ideas and concepts, while also figuring out how to maintain our culture and our history and our heritage, not only just in this generation, but for the next one. So, think we're gonna close it here for the live today. But really that was kind of the driver here as we talk about sports, as we talk about politics, as we talk about history, we talk about our culture, and we look at decisions that we have to make, from a young athlete to seasoned politicians to voters to just observers as diaspora living overseas, is being thoughtful on how we navigate the modern world. while trying to balance it with our culture and making sure that we're still able to bring to the table what makes us unique as a people, as Polynesians, and also leveraging the opportunities out in the Western world or in the modern world to further improve our personal, our familial lives, and our people overall as a group. With that being said, once again, we appreciate all the support. Invite and thank all those who are subscribers to the channel, who contribute through their subscriptions, and then also those who are viewing and support. Once again, thank you very much. And as we always say, stay curious, be bold, and don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. Till next time, peace.